So, welcome everybody to another inspiring episode of By the Block PR's Blockcast. I know we haven't done one in a really long time, but I kind of wait till the right story comes along and the right person comes along. And this was definitely one of those opportunities. So, we have a special episode today for someone who has and is going through what a lot of you have a million questions about, which is the inheritance process and reclaiming a property within your family and the highs and the lows that come along with that process. So I want to introduce you to an amazing person, but also artist, Victoria Del Valle. She is someone who created a beautiful post on Instagram just talking about her journey and how she had found By the Block and that it had helped really to inspire her on this journey. And so I just wanted to invite her on here today to share her story with you, her perspective, and also some of the amazing work that she does outside of this, because of course our people are so brilliant and talented, and I'm always trying to share those things. So welcome.
Thank you so much. Super excited to be talking with you and love the work by the Block PR does. Yeah, I'm super happy to be here.
Awesome. So let's jump right into it. So tell me a little bit about yourself, where you were born and raised, what do you do professionally?
Yeah.
What are some things that have led you kind of to this journey? You know, the tagline for By the Block is your story, your block, your legacy.
Mm.
So let's start with that with you.
As you mentioned, my name is Victoria Alicea Del Valle. I am born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, in a small but mighty community called Villa Victoria, which is a predominantly Puerto Rican community, big Puerto Rican diaspora community in Boston. And yeah, my grandfather moved to Boston in the 60s, and then Villa Victoria was founded shortly after. So it's very generational, a lot of love for it. And I am a full time visual artist. I am an illustrator, painter, and designer. And I have my own practice, my own business doing that. Currently, I have a residency with Lynch Family Skate Park where I've been spray painting the skate park here out in Boston. And I'm also prepping for a solo exhibition come August 1st. So lots of things in motion, super busy, but it's with everything I love. And yeah, that's a little bit about me. I also work with youth a lot doing art workshops too.
Beautiful. We'll
Mhm.
definitely have to connect on some more so we can do those projects and let us know about your solo exhibition
Mhm.
so that we can put it out there because that's amazing. So talk to me a little more about your connection to Puerto Rico. How connected did you grow up to Puerto Rico? Did you go there? Did you not? Do you have family there?
Yeah, that's a really interesting story. So I grew up in a very Puerto Rican community. We call it small Puerto Rico, mini Puerto Rico, in Boston. And that was my only connection to Puerto Rico, really. Like the food that you can find in Puerto Rico, you could find there. We have parade, we have petances, we have all these things. And I didn't end up going to Puerto Rico though until I was 22. So it was a long while that I actually got to go to the island. And that's for many reasons. It's expensive sometimes. And I think just everybody has different relationships with their family. So there was a lot of barriers, but I finally got to go. And everything that I knew of Puerto Rico was through either growing up in the neighborhood I grew up or doing my own research about it. But being there is a total different experience. But ever since the first time I went, I've been trying to go at least twice a year.
Yeah.
So I couldn't stay away after that.
I love it. I know. Once you go, you get bit by
Mhm.
the bug. Like I say, it's really that ancestral pull that you feel like I just belong.
Mhm.
I just belong. So talk to us a little bit about how you found By the Block and kind of how did your journey start with your family's property?
Yeah. So when I first went to Puerto Rico, that was the first time I also met my grandfather. And yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. But then unfortunately, 6 months later, he passes, right?
Oh,
So that was interesting because I was the last of my dad's side to see him alive. And
wow.
uh,
No.
and since then, and me developing my relationship with Puerto Rico and my family out there, I felt
Mhm.
such urgency to be like, we gotta figure out what's happening with this land, with this house. It was really important for me because I'm really big on lineage and family history and ancestry. I think that's super important. And I think the more you have an understanding of that, the more you understand yourself. And I think that's the greatest gift you could give yourself is like self understanding. So when that happened, I started to bring up conversations to my dad. Like, I know it's an overwhelming time, but these are conversations you just need to have because it's important. And I know that a lot of the houses in Puerto Rico are abandoned. And I was like, this is not about to happen. This is not about to happen to us. So, yeah. And knowing a little bit about the area my dad's family's from, which is in San Lorenzo in the mountains, we have a whole sector named after my family, which is really cool. And it's the whole street is my family, and there's already houses that are empty, like my great-grandfather, nobody's living in his house, or my grandfather, and it made me really sad. So that was, like, my motivation, and then I started having talks with my mom and my dad, and it was tough because I think from my perspective, it didn't seem like the older generation in my family felt such urgency or felt such, like they were like, "Why?" Like, "That's just something that happens," you know? And I'm like, "No, that doesn't have to be the narrative." No. Yeah, and I really felt like I was pushing against a bigger force greater than me because I felt like I'm the youngest daughter, right? And my dad is a Puerto Rican man that was born in the '60s. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of But yeah, and then one day I was talking to my aunt and I was like, my dream is to like live in Puerto Rico. I want to at some point in my life I have to live there. I need to reconnect. I need to get better at my Spanish. It's just going to happen. And she sent me a post which was a by the block PR post and it was talking about the conversations we were having. She was like, "Oh, I feel like this is in alignment with where your mindset is." And I was like, "Oh my god, yes. Yes it is. Thank you so much." So, me being me, like, I'm gonna take initiative and reach out. So, I had read about what y'all were saying in the post about property laws, inheritance laws, and I found it really interesting. And I was like, word, let me just send an email. That's not gonna hurt. And of course, I'm like, millions of people are probably sending emails. I didn't know what to expect, but the next day I got a response and I was speaking to Hansel. I think that's
Yes, yes. From the closing company.
yeah, and I was just excited by that, and I wasn't really familiar with where to start, what the process was, so I just had an introductory call with him, and I was like, "Listen, I'm like a baby to this. I don't know, I'm speaking for my dad, I'm trying to be respectful, you know?" And he was so kind and so helpful and just so knowledgeable, and I was like, "Okay, I also have to be smart about, like, who I can trust." So I was trying to be discerning because I didn't know him, but
Excellent. Yes.
yeah, like, after a few conversations, I was like, "Okay, like, how does this work?" I was like, "Oh, wow," like, you could really tell he was doing it off the strength of his heart just to be helpful, and I was telling my dad about it, and it just felt like progress in that moment, so that was the whole context and connection on how I even discovered By the Block PR.
I love that. I love that. Shout out to Hanso. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for being amazing and for having the heart, like you said, to really do this because there are a lot of people out there who don't have the heart and they will take advantage and they will give you misinformation and just take your money. And I think that's one of the biggest fears that the diaspora has is like who they can trust. So, thank you for trusting us and the resources because that is the whole point of it.
Mhm. Thank you, yeah. It was super amazing to find that like, I think it is kind of hard to find, like, the
Hmm.
right people, but once you do, it clicks, and you're like, "Okay, like, I'm writing for this organization, I'm writing for these people, I'm letting everybody know that this is a resource, and they're here to help," you know?
Thank you. Thank you. So, what do you think were some things that you were surprised to really learn um, about this process?
How complicated it is. I Wow. And it's tough because again, I think what I really understood is that this requires such a closeness and connection to your own family, which is a good thing. But I think there are bigger conversations that precede this work, you know? And I think without those preceding conversations and preceding connections, it makes this work 100 times harder. And I think that puts certain people at either advantages or disadvantages, you know? And I think that was the most challenging, frustrating, or surprising thing because I was like, dang, like this is a lot of work, especially if your family has like broken relationships or, or like generational trauma gets in the way. And it's just like, wow, like this system's really hard to navigate. And yeah, I think that was just something that really was shocking.
Agree, agree. Even for myself, when I learned about it, and like you said, how complicated it can be, but it really, I talk to a lot of like trust and estate attorneys over there, and they are always the first thing they say is what you said, which is have the conversation before you come to me.
Right.
Even you need to really have these conversations with your family members, people that may be very distant from you, people that you haven't spoke to in a while for good or bad reasons, and it can be awkward. It can be a lot of work on your own. And I think one of the misconceptions, and I learned this through Gentle, is that people think the lawyer can be your private investigator, and they can't.
Mm-hmm.
You have to do that part and that work on your own and try to gather whatever pieces of death certificates, birth certificates, the crim, all of those things. They can, of course, help guide you, but only within, certain restrictions and amount of time that they have. It really takes you having those conversations. It really takes you doing the research into your family. And have you figured out how many heirs are on this property?
Well, I have an estimate. The thing is, so my grandfather's house is still on the parcel of land that was owned by my great grandfather, and that was never updated. And let me just say, my great grandfather had 18 kids. Okay, so just imagine, like, so with that, obviously the property laws over there is that when my great grandfather passes, that goes to his 18 kids in some capacity. But none of those children like properly got that document that said that they were the heir. I forget what
Mhm.
it's called, but
The deed, yeah, like
yeah.
on the deed.
And
Mhm.
so like if any work is going to be done, it has to start from there. And, even my grandfather being one of them, and he passed, right? All of his siblings, some of them are alive, some of them passed. And if they passed, that goes on to how many of our kids they have. So I was talking to my dad, and when I asked him, how many, like, do you think? He just laughed at me. He was like, girl, I do not know. It has to be like 50, 60,
Wow.
maybe more. And, I was even getting more information about what something like that would cost. And I think just from one of the deeds to or the declaration of it, yeah, it's like $3,000. And I was like, wow. Like, so imagine doing that 50 times. It's expensive, but it's like, and it just made me like wish, like, wow, I wish like my family was on this, like, and I don't shame them for it. It's just like, it was just a wish that urge,
Yeah.
like, wow, I wish that this was set up.
Exactly. I think it's a lack of knowledge. It's also a lack of like what we're used to here. The times have just not caught up there yet. Right. So exactly what you said with your grandfather's and great grandfather about him having a house on his property. It was never put on the deed. Like there were so many agreements that were made verbally back then.
Mhm.
There were so many, okay, yes, you could build right here, right?
Just
Oh, yeah, you could have this piece of land. And back then, it just wasn't that important and easy either to put things down in paper. You didn't really need it. It wasn't a culture back then. But now that things have advanced so much and everybody wants to buy out there and reclaim properties, the process is much different now that we know. People like you are playing catch up.
yes.
Really, you're playing catch up and it can be overwhelming when you hear. But that's why it is good to consult with a lawyer, right? Because maybe it's not 50 people, maybe it's only 12, right? Or 20. They'll be able to really put out the family lineage for you and like how far down does it go? What are the rules when it comes to like your stepmother and her children, right? If your grandfather ever got married and, what does that mean legally? So it is very complicated just because the system is so antiquated, but you'll never make that same mistake again.
Right. Like, I felt just so proud to have that knowledge,
Yeah.
and it helped me get a sense of peace of mind because I'm like, okay, at least I like tried to get this information. I know what it entails. And I also love the idea of like, if I were to do this grand project of really going through all of the airs and going on this journey to reconnect,
Mhm.
I'm like, that would be such a cool just research project. And I know that there's so many organizations, like, for example, I think Central PR. I was like, that would be such a cool like research project to do. And I think of it in that way. I Even though it isn't a big obstacle or challenge, it's like there's ways around it and there's ways for people to support that. And, I still have hope, but it's just about being strategic and figuring out like what is actually like in my capacity and what's possible. But yeah, I think that's also a lot of people's situations. So it's just, yeah, it's just like, wow, okay, like the more we are knowledgeable about it, the better steps we can take to try to untangle everything. Cause that's what it is. It's like one big knot.
That's a great analogy. Exactly. But piece by piece, right?
Right.
String by string. And like you said, even for whatever the result is, you've learned so much. You've looked at your lineage, your history. That's a beautiful thing, like you said. And now you know better. And so you'll do better for your whatever property you buy in Puerto Rico because you will.
Yes, no, for real, like, that's gonna happen. Mhm.
So, what does this property and just this journey represent to you personally?
Personally, I just think of how my grandfather raised his kids on that land and how he was raised on that land and how my great-grandfather grew up there. It's where my family is from, it's where I'm from, and when I went back there the first time, I feel like it just made sense. I was like, "Oh my god, I do this thing every day, and this is where it comes from." Like, it just made me feel that I had such a understanding of myself. It made me feel like I became closer to my dad's side of the family, which I've always felt distant from, and I think that personally, when I go back to my grandfather's casita, is so small, but I'm like, that doesn't even matter, it's really about like the history of it. It's just about the connection I have to it. And just going back twice a year, I always check on it because nature will grow. You know what I'm saying? Nature will do things.
Especially over there.
So I try to just my uncle to help and just keep up with it as much as I can. I'm only 26, you know what I mean? I'm still a baby. I'm still trying to figure things out, but I
You
feel
should
like
be so proud of yourself.
yeah, I feel like I'm doing it for my dad too, who has to always work, and he might not be able to do this all the time, or it might not be his top priority, but it's something that I feel like I can do, and I think when I have kids or even with my niece, like I want to bring them there and like introduce them to family so that they don't go on not knowing that side, And so to me, yeah, it means so much, like, personally. It's such a big source of when I create art sometimes, just thinking about lineage work, like, that's so interesting to me, and I think too, when I think of just what's happening in Puerto Rico right now with the private side how do I say that word? Privatization
Privatization.
of the land there and the coast
Yes.
and just everything that's happening, I'm just like, "Nah, I gotta educate myself. I gotta know what's going on because I don't want the island to not be in our control," And I think colonization scares me. I think that I don't want it touching nothing that is there, so it's just important for me to do it what I can in the ways that I know how to do my part, I think everybody has a part, so I'll start with my family's, section.
My God, I love that. I love that you said that. So much there that is so powerful. And I think, like you said, you just have to do your part,
Literally.
right? Like, and even though you're one person and it's just you and your dad and you're starting this, there's you and there are literally this post that we did that you saw got 200 over 250,000 views. We have thousands of people reach out to us. So if everybody just does their part, if everybody just tries, I mean, that's thousands and thousands of Puerto Ricans who could be pursuing property back there. That's thousands of Puerto Ricans who could gain that inheritance back and gain that reconnection and take back from colonization. Like you said, it is happening and it is happening super fast. It is supercharged right now. They are coming in and buying up with cash anything and everything that they can. And so it's our job to save ourselves. We know it's not going to be the government because they are selling off the land faster than anybody has, and they're selling it to Puerto Ricans.
Mhm.
And so we really have to, again, educate ourselves. It comes down to that education and having that hope, right? And that inspiration that, like, this is possible, even if it takes 5 years, even if it
Literally.
takes 10 years, right? And that's another thing I wanted to touch on that you said, which was, what can you do in the meantime? Right? If you don't have the money to pursue this, or you're in process right now figuring out the family tree, I think what you said was so important. Maintain the property. At this point, if all you can do is just cut the grass, keep it looking clean, follow up on the crim and maybe how much is outstanding so you have an idea of it. Because something that's happening that a lot of people are not realizing, that even in the last year and a half that I started this project, every municipal now, so every tiny town now, is creating a program to take back what they call like the abandoned homes, the estorbo públicos, and sell them off.
I
And so
love
now the laws are changing. And so it's a great thing because they're actively doing something, right, to take these properties and make sure that they're habitable. However, it means that they're seldom.
Mhm.
And so if you don't, what people don't realize too is, if you don't maintain your property and the weeds overgrow and the infrastructure really is bad, under certain conditions, the city can claim it as an estorbo público on their own. They can take it from you and they give you a certain amount of time to reclaim it back. But you have to fulfill those conditions of at least keeping it mowed. And so I tell people, if that's all that you can do right now, then that is enough. That is enough, that at least people see that somebody is working on it also.
Yeah, that is
And so it keeps it, again, within your family so that they don't just come and take it, because that is going to start happening more than people realize right now.
that's so
With
scary.
these accelerated programs, yes, it is so, so super scary. So where do things stand today with the property, and what are maybe some of your next steps that you feel you'll take, whether now or in the future?
Yeah, so my last conversation with Hansel was about identifying what property it was recorded as in Crim, I believe, because each finca has a number associated with it. I remember the last time there was like 3 possible, like, records of it. And I think that's also something that's hard because I don't think records back then were very, like,
Accurate?
yeah, I would say accurate, but that's, like, lack of a better yeah, and I'm like, all 3 of these could possibly be it. So I'm still trying to figure out, like, which exact one would be best to clean, right?
Right.
And also, there's a lot of names on certain documents that I'm like, my dad doesn't know who that is, or I don't know. And so I'm just trying to speak to family right now. It's been a process because I wasn't born in Puerto Rico, so there's just such a disconnect to a lot of my family members.
Right.
I also am not fluent in Spanish. So there's just so much, but I would say it's really just about continuing those conversations with my family right now. I'm still trying to go every twice a year to maintain it. I think I'm going to go in September of this.
Nice.
Yeah. And continuing to get closer to my family in Puerto Rico too, because they would have the most information, honestly, about family out there. So yeah, that's where it stands right now. It's really cool to see some official documentation that
Mm.
Hansel saw, like my grandfather's signature, my great grandfather's
Oh, I
signature.
know.
Yeah, and I was like, wow, like it feels so beautiful just to witness that.
How inspirational for your art.
Yes, yeah. So that's where it stands right now. Just kind of in a pause of conversations and figuring it out. Figuring out, yeah, what's next, because what would be next is, continuing to work with Hansel and figuring out what family members need to be declared. And again, having the money to be prepared to do that. So
Right.
gotta figure that
Right.
out. Yeah.
What advice would you give someone who feels intimidated by the process?
Reach out to buy the block.
Yeah.
It is an overwhelming feeling.
It
It is,
is.
especially if you don't have trusted resources. But I think before making any decision, you gotta do your research, you gotta educate yourself, even if you have to watch YouTube videos on how property laws in Puerto Rico work.
Yes.
And
YouTube University is
no,
amazing.
for real. And also just starting to ask those conversations to your family. And I know that sometimes it could be like a hard subject to bring up. And, it might be triggering for some folks. So just being like compassionate in that, trying to figure out how best to start those conversations. But if that's something you really want to do, I think that you just need to take that leap and just start doing it. And yeah, a quick Google search goes a long way, honestly.
Mhm.
So
I know.
yeah, I would just say that find people that have gone through similar processes. Like I'm always down to speak to people, and I know you've done other interviews with other people, so it doesn't hurt to reach out to them just to get insight or advice either.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think that's the perfect actually, I do have one more question because I think this would be beautiful for you. If your grandparents or ancestors who originally owned this property could see what you've done today, what do you think they would say?
I think they would just give me a big hug because I don't even know what they would say. I think, well, obviously, beside like we're proud and thank you, but I think when I first met my grandfather, like just the act of me being there and my presence and, me genuinely wanting to get a closer relationship or ask him about his plants, like simple things like that. I remember after he passed, my aunt said that he told her that that was one of the best days of his life, right? And yeah, that was so beautiful. And I think just the act of trying and being there and being present and being curious, it shows, commitment. It shows love. It shows honor. And I think that is what my ancestors would be most proud of, that I even have an interest in going on this journey, wherever the outcome might be. It's like, wow, like, I feel seen, like, thank you for honoring, thank you for trying to understand where you come from. So, yeah, that's what I think.
100%. I think they would say you're willing to do the work and put the heart behind it, so you deserve it.
Yeah.
You deserve it. And for whatever, wherever you end up, all these pieces that you just described to us about reconnecting, about educating yourself, about just feeling more connected to your family and going down the tree, I think that that is still all worth it.
Yeah, 100%, yeah. So I will be hitting up Centro PR to see.
Central also has amazing, like I'm in one now, an online course. These free online courses that are so dope. And especially for the diaspora to start educating ourselves, understanding, reconnecting what our role has been in history and in this fight is central, you are dope.
I think too, like all these journeys we go through in life, it's worth documenting and it's worth sharing. And these are the only stories out there. And so I just look forward to continuing to have it be almost like source material for my creative work and making it into something that is a challenge worth pursuing.
It's your legacy. No
Yeah.
matter what it is, this is your legacy. You're writing it. This is the story that your children will hear, your grandchildren will hear. And I think I'm so excited for those generations to hear from more and more of us about how not we left, but that we went back
Yep.
or that we reclaimed.
Mm-hmm.
That will be the new narrative, and people like you are planting those seeds. So I just want to say I am proud of you.
Thank you.
I am on your side. We encourage you, whatever we can do to help you, but you keep on this journey because it is so, so worth it.
Thank you so much, and shout out to all the work you do. You're doing such great work, and
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Mhm.
Check out Victoria's artwork. I'll link her page below. Please let us know about your exhibit when it comes out because I definitely want to shout that out. And then we'll connect more on a possible event that we'll do in Boston. Shout out to all my Puerto Ricans in Boston. I need to visit that community. I will. I will. Well, thank you again. Any parting words you want to leave for anybody?
Just keep on keeping on, y'all. Like, we got this. We got this. We
Uh,
got this. And learn your Spanish. That's important.
Period. Even you're amazing. You're doing such amazing work at such a young age. You should be so proud of yourself. I'm